Our tribal chief has returned at the end of Monday Night Raw, and this is going to be a little bit of a theme throughout this show. The dirt sheets got it wrong yet again, Andy. They were reporting at the very last minute that Roman was not in the building and that he was not returning tonight. Well, guess what? Surprise, surprise. Papa H got you again. Roman Reigns is back as we predicted. If you watched the show last week, we predicted that Roman would return Madison Square Garden, and Andy, what an impact he made.
Yeah. It was definitely an impact that he made. It was a big moment. It was definitely different than most of the other times that he returns, because normally we get the entrance and the music drop and everything else. This time he just ran out to the ring and instantly started going after Seth Rollins, which I really enjoyed. I love that Roman is back. Obviously, we have our thoughts about the triple threat match, about whether it should happen or not. I like the finish, but I hate that it had to happen in this match, because this match was so good. And I get why, and everything that needed to happen, it absolutely needed to happen this way. So I get it, and I'm not upset about it. But part of me was like, yeah, Roman's here, but that there should have been a finish to that. Like that was a main event of Raw where you need to get a finish to a match. But where we're heading, who knows? I still think there could be a curveball in this whole situation where maybe we don't get a triple threat. Maybe, I don't know, they find a way to do Seth and Roman one night and Seth and Roman one night and Punk and Rollins the next night, or whatever the case is. But I think it's going to be a very interesting road now that Roman is officially back.
I think those feelings, as far as what they might do for WrestleMania, at least in your case, and in some cases mine as well, is a little bit for selfish reasons, because we want to see in Punk's first WrestleMania match, we want to see something spectacular. We don't want to see a seemingly thrown together triple threat, because he had such a great year last year.
Yeah.
And as the Shield fan that you are, and the Roman and Seth fan that I am, we want to see a straight up one-on-one between these guys, because we haven't gotten, aside from the Rumble match, because it's soured with a finish, we haven't gotten a true one, especially on the WrestleMania stage. So I get that. I'm here for this triple threat, and it sold me more on it tonight. I'm like you. I wanted to see more of a finish in this match, but I do get, obviously, why they couldn't do it. But, Andy, I'll go back to the Royal Rumble that we were in attendance for, by the way. And if you haven't checked out our vlog on the YouTube channel, please go do that. I'll link it right here. Please go make sure you do that. But at the Royal Rumble, Andy, the camera shot of Seth Rollins starting to get up and Roman right behind him, the way they shot that was just brilliant. So seeing that makes me want to see that match. But Andy, they did it again tonight, when I don't know how Heyman snuck into the ring. Heyman sneaks into the ring and he's comforting CM Punk. And then Roman turns around and he sees it.
Yeah.
The way they shot that with the look on Roman's face, bro. I mean, like, the storytelling, we talk about Roman's storytelling without using words all the time. That was just at its peak level at the Rumble and tonight.
Yeah, and I completely agree. But again, each interaction makes me excited for the one-on-one, not the triple threat. Because, like, the interaction at the Rumble, when I saw those two together, first thing that went through my mind is, how have these two never had a one-on-one match at WrestleMania?
Yeah.
Like, this feels like this could be one of those matches where it's like, we're destined to do this forever. Like, it should be one of those feuds that we get.
Like Punk and Drew.
Like Punk and Drew, like Cena and Orton, even, like, to an extent, Austin and Rock. Like, there are feuds that Triple H and Shawn Michaels, in a way, like, we're destined to do this forever. And that's Seth and Roman. So, like, all these individual moments are awesome and they're great. But, like, tonight, when Heyman was in the ring, that got me real excited to see Roman and Punk together and talk about that issue. Seth feels like an outsider. And then you have the stomps on the outside to Seth, and you get that cool shot of Roman and Seth on the outside. Punk feels like an outsider. All the stuff between Seth and Punk, Roman feels like an outsider. So it feels like we have three really great opportunity, like 3 really great one-on-one matches that are absolutely WrestleMania worthy.
Mm.
But we're throwing it all together for one match. And again, it's going to be a great match. Like, I think the in-ring stuff is going to be fantastic. The story they may tell will be amazing going into it. But it just makes me think, what if this was like a one-on-one? Like, what if we got just Seth and Punk at WrestleMania inside Hell in a Cell? Or if we got Seth and Roman at WrestleMania finally going at it? What if we got Roman and Punk at WrestleMania finally going at it? So there's so many options for this.
And my brother Bryce is in the chat. Shout out to all of you who are watching live. Drop your comments and questions in the chat. We will get to as many of those as we can. He says maybe a stip match of sorts for the 3-way at WrestleMania. I'm with him. Like we speculated last week. I mean, I've long thrown out Drew, Punk, Rollins, Hell in a Cell at WrestleMania. I think is in the triple threat. You could do that here. Maybe that's a little too far, but I think, Andy, to Bryce's point about a stipulation and to your point about what the in-ring stuff is going to be, I honestly think by the end of WrestleMania, we're all going to be satisfied with what we've got. Like they're going to make us be satisfied, especially if tonight was any indication, because like you said, man, this steel cage match, we essentially, because Punk left, we were robbed for 10 years of this match. It was so freaking good tonight. It really was, man.
Yeah, and I remember on this podcast the night of the first episode of Raw on Netflix when they went one-on-one.
Yes.
We all talked about how the match itself was amazing, like really good, but it felt like there could have been more. Yes. And that's a perfect build to these, 3 matches that you do or however many matches you do. The first one sets the stage. The second one has to top it. The third one has to be the crescendo that ends it all.
Yep.
And if this is the middle piece that we got between these two, that's part of the reason why I'm like, these two at Mania inside Hell in a Cell will be up there with like, and I know you're probably going to throw stones at me, up there with like Undertaker and Triple H's Hell in a Cell at WrestleMania.
Or like that's a fantastic match.
Some of the other ones, like I think it could get to that point. So whenever these two lock up one more time, one-on-one, it's going to be the big one that we talk about, much like the Drew Punk segment. But yeah, this match, you could just tell from how the crowd is. I mean, you're in Madison Square Garden, and it's a steel cage match. And I love that throughout the night, they hyped not only Raw steel cage matches, but it was like steel cage matches televised in the Garden. Like this made it feel like such a big fight, and I loved it.
I mean, it was vicious. It really was. Like they just, especially for the first like 10 minutes of the match or whatever it was, just throwing hands. And Michael Cole kept reiterating the fact nobody's gone for a pin yet. Nobody's gone. Like it's so good, man.
No wrestling moves. Like they were just. It was a war as soon as they got in.
It really was. And when they climbed up to the top of the cage and they were doing those fantastic drone shots, kudos to WWE for that. But when they were fighting up at the top of the cage, man, they just made it look so effortless up there. Like from the drone shot that we saw with Punk crotching himself on the top, like I couldn't tell that his legs were in the position to be able to do that. So when he hit it, I was like, oh man, oh, that's so good. Yeah. And then when he kicked Rollins and he started swinging, I was like, I didn't even know Rollins was in that position. It was so good, man. Like these two guys, that's what I mean by we were robbed of this for 10 years. The instant chemistry that these guys have is so good, dude. It's so good. Yeah. Like I want to see them literally fight forever.
Yeah. I mean, this had an old school steel cage match and a new era flair at the same time.
Yep.
Like it's, sometimes we get these steel cage matches where like they're trying to sell it as a blood feud or whatever, and you just don't get that feeling. You got it with these guys, and they did such a great job that at one point my wife is sitting there going, I think Seth is really trying to hit him with that screw in the corner to make him bleed. Like I think like she was like, Seth needs to calm down a little bit. So I was like, yeah, like this. They do a great job of blurring the lines between these two and getting that real emotion out. And then all of a sudden, like the crowd at one point, they were massive for Punk, and then Rollins started to win him over at the same time. And it was just, it was a perfectly done steel cage match for TV.
Yep, it really was. We have a lot to talk about with this feud, obviously over the next 40 days or so leading into WrestleMania, no matter which direction it goes. So make sure you keep it locked in right here. As I say all the time, I've got pages of notes here, but you guys drive the conversation in the comments. Let's get to one more comment before we move on here. My brother Bryce hanging out with us. He says, I think Paul Heyman's angle for whatever comes out of this is going to play a major role. Yes, completely agree. There's also been lots of speculations about Punk's favor. Is that going to tie into this? Heyman clearly showing allegiance to CM Punk tonight, but you know, Roman is his tribal chief. So how does all that go? You know, we speculated back at the Royal Rumble, Andy, that maybe Heyman turns on or turns on Roman in favor of Punk, and maybe Punk turns heel that way. I don't know if you have to look at it right now. I'm not saying make a definitive answer or a definitive prediction, but how does Paul Heyman sort of end up with this whole thing? Like, what does it look like over the next couple of weeks as Heyman is trying to find his way through this feud?
Yeah, I think Paul Heyman is going to play a major role in all of this, but I think whatever the big turn is going to happen at WrestleMania. And then we get the next chapter of the Paul Heyman storyline going into like the second half of the year to kind of tell it from there. Selfishly, and I think this is kind of where they're turning Punk heel and having him and Heyman go back together, I think is a moneymaker decision in and of itself. Mm-hmm. And to have them go at it, plus you get more of, I mean, you could kind of do 3 more matches with Seth and Punk at that point of Seth saying, well, you had to join Heyman to get the win, and we never really got to do this all on our own. You have Roman's beef from it all. The one that is very intriguing that I didn't really think about until now is if Paul Heyman gets fed up on the road to WrestleMania and somehow, because we've seen it before, his plan B comes out and it's not Punk and it's not Roman, but him and Rollins align themselves together somehow.
Wow. Okay, that's fun.
Like that's the one that it's like nobody would see it coming if it did happen.
We've sort of speculated on this podcast, at least Jared has when he's on the show. He has said, just turn Rollins heel already. Like it's like he's dancing on the line anyway, turn him heel. Yeah. It would be a fantastic way to book it. You know, I'm always a proponent of Paul Heyman being with somebody who's not necessarily not a great talker, but needs a mouthpiece. Rollins certainly doesn't need a mouthpiece, but I can definitely see, like you said, it's the plan B. Triple H says there's always a plan B. Paul Heyman's, you know, it writes itself.
We're only in the 4th inning.
That's true. That's true. And we are only in the 4th inning. We'll take you all the way to the 9th inning, though, here on Squared Circle Radio, all the way to the end. We're going to keep it locked in right here, catching you up on all the news and covering everything. So subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We would appreciate it.